Great. Welcome to Digital Asset News. My name is Rob, and today we got a lot of things to go over, so let's just jump right in. You're here maybe because of the title, which is really taking a look at the big picture. And I think as we get into these bear markets, which we are right now, and the bull markets, I think there's a lot of noise to actually separate and look into. So first, we'll take a look at the big picture. Are we missing it? We'll do a little market recap. Then we'll take a look at Bitcoin at 12K. Cycle bottoms, wall indicators, institutions, are they flowing in or out or just being stagnant? Also, we'll take a look at, there's going to be a Voyager town hall meeting tomorrow, which I will be at. Then we'll take a look at wallets being turned off, specifically USDC and Tether. And lastly, we'll take a look at a story about Mark Cuban and Cardano. So before we get into it, just so everybody knows, I'm still feeling a little bit fatigued under the weather. So we'll see how the Q&A goes. But the doctors I'll be doing a bunch of appointments moving forward, but I'm not a person just to sit around and do nothing. And if you know, like just anything, I mean, I've done as much as I possibly can do, so we'll see how it all works out. But I know if you've had a back injury and just laid around forever, it actually gets worse. So the only thing you can do is just push through, just like this crappy market. So anyhow, let's take a look at the big picture itself. And this story kind of brings it home for me and maybe for you. This came through from Twitter, Hassan Bhatti. And it talks about a story about in 2009, a Stanford business professors split her class into 14 teams. They gave each team $5 in 2 hours. And they told them to get as much ROI as possible and said they give a presentation after finishing. So just 2 hours with $5. Do something with it, make a lot of money. And here's what happened. So let's talk about the teams that lost. So most of them tried to flip the items. They bought something for $5 at a store, sold it for $8 in the street. That's kind of like what I would probably think about doing. So I'm like, I can make a quick buck and I've only got 2 hours. One team got more creative. They realized that the $5 was mostly a distraction. So they just thought of ways to make money in two. They ended up making reservations at a restaurant and selling them to people who didn't want to wait in line. Not too bad. And their ROI was a little bit better. But this is where it takes the cake. The winning team got even more creative. They didn't just realize that the $5 was mostly just a distraction. They realized that there was a value asset hidden in the challenge, and that's time. So what they did is they reached out to local companies, offered them a 3-minute slot as ad space for their presentation. And after some negotiation, they closed the deal for $650. ROI of 12,900%. So the really big thing, the really crux of it is you have to take a look at what's going on and just think to yourself, am I missing the big picture? Is there something that I'm just not thinking about? And that, I think, is the bigger story than what we're diving into superficially. So let's just jump into the market and keep that in the back of your head as we go through these stories. So today's the down day, not a big deal, down 3.6%, 4.9 for Ethereum. Nothing goes up forever, a little bit of pullback, and that's healthy. And you can see that over the last 24 hours, everything's pretty much down, so not a big deal. And that's the market itself. But there was this interesting piece from Joko.btc at Blockwise. And he put out some data which says, or he or she, realized the price of addresses holding 10 to 100 Bitcoin have acted 3 times as key support. And at the moment, the realized price of the category of address is 12,780. So if you take a look at this data piece, just say, well, addresses holding 10 to 100 Bitcoin, this is the support levels for these addresses. And over time, 2020 or 2019-18, it was $3,100. In 2015, $185. In 2013, well, whatever, $2. But think of these. Just keep this in mind: 3,100, 12,780, 185. If we go back and we take a look at where Bitcoin has been, so this is kind of eerie. In 2013, during the high, because this is all about 4-year cycles, I believe in that. The price, the tippy top, was 1127, and the price right here, 172. Kind of interesting because you had it at 185. Okay. And that's an 85% reduction from the top to this local bottom for that 4-year cycle. We move forward, December 15, 2017, it was 19,665. And then just a couple months later, the bottom was 3,200, 84%, $3,200, 3,200, 3,110. Interesting. And if we move even forward into today, you'll notice that the high for this cycle was 67,145. And then it went down to 19,047. Now, this is from CoinGecko, so take it with a grain of salt, but I could have sworn we hit around 17,500. Correct me in the comment section. But if you take a look at 67 and 19,000, that's only 71% reduction. And if you go down to, 17,000, that's only 75% reduction. And that is not what it's been the last 2 cycles. Does that mean that it absolutely has to go down? No. But it's something to keep in the back of your mind when you try to cut out the noise of the short term versus the long term. So that is also leads me to this part. So there's some negatives there, which was put over here for all these addresses holding 10 to 100 Bitcoin. But you got to remember this. These are all the Bitcoin wallet holding 1 Bitcoin or more. And I want you to notice something right here. We are at an all-time high. Never in the history of Bitcoin and crypto has there been addresses of over 1 Bitcoin totaling 892,123. Today is the day that it is an all-time high. So something to think about as you cut through all this noise. Also, there's also going to be things as far as short-term versus long-term. This was an email I got from looking at Bitcoin. It says, hey, take a look at active addresses sentiment indicator. We're entering an overbought area, potential for price to top in the coming weeks. And we take a look at this. First of all, what the heck is that? What is an active address sentiment indicator? It compares a 28-day change in price with the 28 change in active address for a short-term sentiment indicator, if you're into the short term. Dotted red line is upper, dotted green line is lower, orange line is 28-day price change. So again, it's always the same thing on looking at Bitcoin. We did a video about this a couple of days ago for taking a look at cycle tops and bottoms. As you can see here that yes, we are above this red line. So in the short term, it could go down, might not. But again, cut through all the noise. Look at it over here. Here's a red line looking retroactively. If you would have got out on December 20th, 2020 and said, well, it's above this red line, look how far up it went. You would have missed out on some pretty impressive gains. The big thing that I want you to know is this. When in doubt, zoom out. Take a look at all of the different wallets that are out there. Here's the NUPL. And one thing I want you to notice is that once we dip below this green area of capitulation, and you can find all these charts at Looking at Bitcoin. It's 100% free. That's why I love using them. You can see that it dropped down below the 4,500 mark and then didn't retrace back in. Same thing going on over here. I think we could dip a little bit, but then go up. So again, are you short term? Are you long term? Are you trying to cut out the noise? Here's another piece that you might find interesting. Novogratz. We talked about him yesterday. I know some people hate his guts because of the fact that he was big into Luna. And of course that collapsed, and he talked trash all the time about Cardano, but here he is, still around. I got to tip my hat to him. At least he still shows up, unlike a lot of people. Novogratz, doubtful Bitcoin will push through 30,000. And what he says here is this: there hasn't been significant inflows of institutional capital into the space. So he says. And I'm like, well, that's not good, but it's not that bad. He says, be happy if we're in a 20,000, 22,000, or 30,000 range for a while. We're not seeing huge institutional flows in. But to be fair, we're not seeing anyone back away. And just remember, I mean, Coinbase just had a nice little deal with BlackRock. So do I think this could be a big thing later on? Sure. But the thing is, you have to remember is this. Look at the big picture. Is this awful that we're not hitting all-time highs all of a sudden? Is it bad that we can't? Or is it actually a pretty good thing if you take a step back and go, well, I'm not a billionaire, so it's going to take me a little bit of time to dollar cost average and get into these positions. And maybe in 3, 5, 10 years, things will work out for the best. I think that's the bigger picture of what things people might be missing. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section. Let's look at our next piece, which if you're going to look at things that you can change and avoiding noise, these are things that you can actually get into. So this is the Voyager Town Hall. So just so you know, this was put out by Voyager UCC, and they are the official committee of the unsecured creditors of Voyager Digital, which will be like people like me, potentially people like you. And they're having a town hall meeting. What's today? Wednesday? Shoot, it's Tuesday. 2 days, excuse me. Thursday, August 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Depending on where you're at in the world, it might be a day ahead or 2 days ahead if you're in Thailand or something like that. But just so you know, there is a link in the description. And if you follow me on Twitter, you can find this as well. It's going to be a live town hall. You can put things in the chat and talk about what could potentially happen. This is where you can take control of things. I linked the video in the description so you can check it out. But just so you know that who's putting this on, it says McDermott, Will, and Emery. Well, who the heck is that? It's just a law firm. It's a law firm that is part of the committee, and there's a bunch of different people within it. So if you have some of your crypto, like myself, which is still on Voyager, it might behoove you to come in here and figure out what's going on and what the next step are. Again, the big picture is things that you can actually control. So that's just a little public announcement of PA. Last two things I want to talk about is wallets being turned off. I know people are freaking the F out about this, and I can see why, but let's go through the story and you tell me how big this is. U.S. Treasury sanctions crypto mixer Tornado Cash. The Treasury Department is sanctioning DeFi mixing service Tornado Cash. The move is the agency's second sanction of a mixing service and arguably the first designed to take down a DeFi protocol. Well, that's not good. Treasury accused Tornado Cash of laundering more than $455 million for North Korea's Lazarus Group. Well, that's a bummer. Unfortunately, they didn't shut everything off for North Koreans, just Americans. And just so you know, Infura and Alchemy are now blocking access to Tornado Cash. And this is where it all hits home. Circle, which is responsible for USDC, freezes USDC funds in Tornado Cash's U.S. Treasury sanctioned wallets. Here's what it comes down to. Circle has blacklisted some Tornado Cash wallet addresses. The USDC in the affected wallets is now frozen. Centra, the consortium behind the USDC coin stablecoin, has blacklisted wallet addresses controlled by Tornado Cash, following the U.S. Treasury sanctions against the crypto mixer. Centra has stopped the movement of at least 75,000 USDC, which is $75,000, by blacklisting Tornado Cash wallets in the sanctioned list. Let me say that again. Centra has stopped the movement of at least, maybe more, 75,000 USDC, $75,000. Circle is regulated company and conforms to sanctions compliance requirements. That's from USDC. By blacklisting the wallet addresses, Tornado Cash will no longer have access to the USDC funds in those wallets. This is because when Centra blacklists an address, the owner becomes unable to receive or transfer funds. The consortium formed by USD issuer Circle and exchange platform Coinbase also froze about $100,000 in USDC belonging to a wallet address in July 2020. Well, wouldn't that be a great reason to get into Tether? Hold on. Tether has frozen 653 addresses on Ethereum over the last few years, just so you know. Tornado Cash's site appears to be down. Its GitHub page has also disappeared in the hours since the OFAC announcement. So here's the thing. I know people are freaking out because they're like, this is the beginning. This is where it all comes down to. This is the start of awful regulation as they shut everything down. And maybe it will be. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think anybody really else does either. So I know 75,000 is quite a bit of money to lose, especially if that's one person. That is the truth. But is it the end all be all right now? But Rob, you don't understand. This is a slippery slope. Before you know it, shut down Bitcoin wallets and everything else, just like Canada did and everything. Maybe. I don't know. I can't control that. I know what you can control, though. If you're in the United States or any part of the world, you have a representative that you can contact, right? So if you don't like what's going on, maybe instead of worrying about it and freaking out, why don't you contact your state representative or your government representative of wherever you're at and say, we don't want this. We want to move forward and we don't want stifling regulation. So again, you can sit here and freak out about it and worry and whatever else, or you can take some action. So that will lead me to my next point, Mark Cuban and Cardano. So there was this great interview over on Altcoin Daily. And Mark said some things, and I got to be honest with you, kind of made me angry because I like Cardano. But you have to get rid of the noise and cut through the truth. Dogecoin is more potential application than Cardano. I'm not even getting into Dogecoin. I don't really care about that. So this is what Mark Cuban said. You know my thoughts on Cardano, because he was asked, what do you think about Cardano? He goes, my thoughts on Cardano are the same as they are on Polygon and Ethereum. There's got to be a there. I don't know what the heck that means. There's got to be a there. I'm sure that means something. Cuban says he looks at the number of transactions on a blockchain, calling it a bellwether of success. I guess the people in Africa are not using Cardano as much as they expected because you don't see the transactions. You don't see the fees. So before everybody starts yelling at the screen, especially Cardano lovers and Ethereum lovers and everything else, let's look at some facts just to be sure. If you take a look at if this is true, there's a great website he always talks about, actually, cryptofees.info. I linked in the description. You can find it's pretty simple. If you take a look at the one-day fees for Ethereum, $2,017,012.74, and the average is 2.6. Oh, it averages 7 days. So what's 2 times 30? I expect 60 million a month. Good for them. And then, of course, Uniswap and Aave, and they are, of course, built on Ethereum. Binance Smart Chain, Bitcoin are different. Solana is different, Avalanche, and well, Polygon's layer 2 solution. And of course, well, people would say, but Rob, Ethereum fees are crazy high as opposed to Binance Smart Chain, Bitcoin, Solana, Avalanche, which is true. And actually, if you take a look at the average price, this is Ethereum gas tracker. I didn't link this in the description. You got to find it. Do some work. You'll see that the low today between these three places, OpenSea, Uniswap, and USDT, about $2, $2.50. Uniswap, for some reason, is super high, $6.50, $1. So like around $4, I guess, right? $4 for gas fees, which would probably lead to you a lot of higher prices. I get that. And then there's this part here, you know that there's going to be a merge coming up. And just to be clear, that's not going to help much of the transaction fees. This is just the second step in the eventual ETH 2.0 transformation. And Vitalik comes out and says, look, layer 2 solution will make crypto payments make sense again. And he states this, so today with rollups, transaction fees are generally somewhere between a quarter and a dime. And in the future with rollups, all the improvements to efficiency that I talked about, the transaction costs could go down to a nickel or maybe even like 2 cents. So much cheaper, much more affordable, and a complete game changer. In the Ethereum's co-founder's view, Bitcoin and other assets will soon be able to provide this use case once again as scaling solutions. And not to be outdone, don't forget, Lightning Network for Bitcoin, that makes the transaction fees super low, gradually bring the cost down to a fraction of a cent. So if you take a look at what Mark was saying, you know, if he wants to say it's the bellwether, which is fees and transactions, I mean, that's one part. I think as time goes on, Ethereum won't be expensive. But don't get all high and mighty, Cardano holders. Just wait for this. On this channel, I'm not here to give everybody the great news that they want to hear. I try to give you the information that you need to hear. And this is one of them. So let's go down that hole. So here, first of all, I just want to make mention of this. XRP transactions, and this is also Bitcoin Ethereum. I linked this also in the description. You can check this out. But if you can see right here, the XRP transactions are in orange. They are like much, much higher. Not much, but a little bit higher than Ethereum. Kind of on the same level, right? And then, of course, in blue is Bitcoin. These are the transactions. Not that many transactions, but it's okay. And Ethereum's got a lot. And if you notice one thing about the crypto fees over here, you have to scroll down pretty darn far to find Ripple. And if this is correct, that's insane. $568 per day when you got as many transactions as Ethereum, well, that something's not right. Well, XRP is pretty cheap. I will say that. But then just notice, I want you to notice this, that in the red, Ethereum transaction says 1.25, 1.2, 1.4, and then around 1.16 yesterday and today. There's this great website called Masari. I linked that in the description too. You can find it, verify this stuff. And this is all of Ethereum's transactions. Because remember what Mark said about there's fees and there's transactions. That's the bellwether of success. And he's right, it is. Ethereum, you're looking at transaction count 1.6, 1.4, roughly the same as the other one, 1.16, 1.2, 1.459. There's a lot of transactions. That is true. So even if we go through and we talk about Cardano and how inexpensive it is, transactions are not there. That's just the truth. Take a look at Masari. Transaction count, 74,000, 68,000, 77,000. Now there's a big spike over here, November 22nd, 2021, but it's still pretty low. So to go back, and even though what Mark said, I was like, this son of a gun, he's right. He's right. Cardano doesn't have a lot of transactions. They don't. Ethereum has a lot of transactions. Ripple, XRP have a lot of transactions. So if that's the bellwether of success for right now, unless I'm missing something, sound off in the comment section, but that's just the truth. Now, does that mean that Cardano can't make it up and have a ton of transactions moving forward? Sure, why not? But at this point in time, and the amount of money that's being moved around, of course, transactions for Ethereum are much higher because it's so darn expensive. Now, transaction fees are low, but if you look at the transaction count, just by the transaction count, it isn't there yet. So I have to take a look at that and say to myself, well, Mark was right on that one. So that's all we got. And again, to reiterate, before all the Cardano lovers blow up my comment section, I like Cardano too. I have invested in Cardano. Hell, I've even got a stake pool. But that doesn't mean right now that it's on par with Ethereum. These are the facts that you have to accept. When in doubt, zoom out, take a look at the data, and are you missing the big picture? The big picture for right now is that's what's going on. That's what I got. So anyhow, I want you to think about that in the comment section. Let's move into some Q&A so everybody can roast me.